Tim, thanks for coming back.
Sure.
And I really want to dive into this one because creatine is such a, sort of
Hot topic.
Yeah, argued for no reason. Just so much poor information. But I know we are going to talk about creatine and then a potential performance-enhancing stack that athletes can start taking.
Yep.
Cool. So let's dive into creatine. Why is it beneficial?
Because it's pretty much good for everything, really.
Okay.
Just to kind of keep it simple. But what is creatine? Essentially, it's an amino acid that helps with the reproduction of energy, right? So our initial energy system is something called ATP. For the purposes of today, people can look that up. But in use of that energy, it donates a phosphate. Creatine monohydrate helps replenish that phosphate, so energy turnover can just be a continuous cycle.
Very cool.
It will happen on its own, but if you do it more quickly and more rapidly and more readily available, you're just, you have basically people on deck, if you will, right?
Awesome.
So that's one of the huge benefits. Commonly more so known as, improving power output, right? Strength. It does have huge, benefits in terms of recovery. And then, obviously from what you like to discuss more too, is like the cognitive benefits of it too, right? Mm-hmm. There are some cancer reducing properties to it, right? I think the biggest downside of it, or reason why it's gotten such a big downside, is probably because of more so like media, or first of all, being unsure, right? It wasn't studied enough, which is, I think, smart, right? We should know what we're talking about before it's like,
right,
hey,
but
this,
we're talking
this seems
20
good, right?
years ago.
Right, we're talking a long, long time ago, right? Listen, I think it speaks volumes that at one point in time, not very long ago, probably, if I'm guessing, maybe within like 10 years or so, which is still, I guess, a significant amount of time, you weren't allowed to take it in the NCAA.
Right.
Now you can.
Right.
So obviously that says something.
Yeah.
Media, I won't go too far deep into it. There was one incident in particular which this individual was doing a lot of other things, but just happened to be on creatine. So it was a really easy way to kind of, I say on creatine, like it was because that's how they worded it, but was taking creatine. But again, some of the other real, benefits of it are just, it's really, to me, it kind of covers all aspects, right? There's the cognitive benefit. There's the weight gain benefit, right? Which is obviously helpful. Weight gain in the sense where it is helping improve muscle, but it is also driving water into the cell, right? And we did discuss why that's important, right? So water basically helps good stuff get in and get bad stuff out, right? Which is what we want. But again, really just the improvements in performance are probably where the population is that we're focusing on is going to kind of really focus on, which is good. Fun fact for you though, our female athletes actually respond to creatine better. And the studies are somewhat new, but the overarching concept of it was that because females generally have less muscle and may produce a little bit less of it, now when their muscles or their body gets that taste of it, are vastly more improvements in it. Because again, males generally have more of it.
Yep, totally. Okay, cool. So creatine, obviously that's going to be part of this performance enhancing stack and probably the, I would say the backbone or spine of this.
Yep.
All right, where are we going next?
Well, I do want to touch on something with creatine though. Again, a lot of guys, it was a thing, I guess it kind of still is. There was a loading phase that was associated with creatine.
Yes.
In my experience, again, purely opinion, because there are some benefits to it, but it's like, okay, you're going to do it for a month and then not do that anymore, so it can't be that valuable. Mm-hmm. I think it's more a way of getting someone to go through the product more quickly, so you're forced to buy that second one. Standard dose is going to be like 5 grams. That's what you're going to get. And it's important to know we're saying creatine, it's creatine monohydrate. There's a few other forms. They're not as proven to do as, what they're supposed to be doing.
Got it.
Standard dosing is like the 5 gram mark. Playing around with it, I mean, bigger guys or just individual response down the line can go upwards of maybe 10, 15, 20, depending on the person.
That's spread out throughout a day.
So it depends. Most likely, yes, because it will cause some GI distress, right? It can pull water into the gut. It can lead to nausea or diarrhea. So again, depends on the individual. That individual, if they're already experiencing with 5 grams, is not going to go above that, right? So most people will be fine with the 5. If you want to split it, you can. I mean, me, myself, I have no problem tolerating 20 grams at a clip, which I'll do. For me, I'll do in post-workout. Sometimes I'll do 5 before, but again, that's really where I focus on it. More importantly, it's not a timing thing with creatine. It's a saturation thing. So if it's there and it's present, if you're taking it every day, it's getting the job done.
Cool.
Right.
Very cool. Consistency once again.
That's it, right? So it's like the route of the tortoise, right? Slow and steady wins the race, right?
Yep.
So you're better off going that route. Next one we discussed before, alpha GPC, right? It's really good, very powerful at kind of like producing or helping with neurotransmitters, right? So you got cognitive function, attention, memory, focus, a lot of that kind of ties into
Motor
everything
control.
that we're doing, motor control, right? Exactly. There are different kind of dosages, I should say, that people can kind of go for. You and I discussed this, right? Like 1,200 milligrams spread out throughout the day. So 4 doses of 300 or 3 doses of 400 has been showing signs for cognitive function.
Yep.
There are some benefits in terms of power output, which to me, my takeaway from that is that if there's more just overall neural function and the brain is controlling the muscular, activity, that'll help. That's at lower doses. So for like this, the high school, college guys, right? The cognitive benefits will be helpful, but they can start with a lower dose and still see some advantage and then bring it up,
Yeah, I think the
upwards
most
from there.
important thing, right, when talking about any supplement here is that you have to understand you're always dealing with a study with N of 1, right? So meaning, and for those of you that don't know what I'm saying there, it means like, doesn't matter what the hell you read, doesn't matter what the hell you heard. At the end of the day, you are the only subject in the study. So you're going to have to play a little bit of trial and error.
Sure.
Where somebody like yourself comes in is there's way less barrier to entry in terms of knowledge, and you're monitoring this for them as they're experiencing, what they're doing. But anything we're going to be referencing here today, I want to make this very clear. Number one, you should still consult a healthcare professional when talking about this, because we don't know any of your circulating circumstances that you might have.
They might not know their own circulating
100%.
circumstances, right? So you got to be careful.
Yep.
Right.
Number two, anything that we are going to reference today, it is virtually impossible. I say that again, virtually impossible to overdose some of these. So don't be worried about toxicity or anything like that. You will get, like we said, GI issues or some other stimulant-based issues should you overdose these by accident. Right. But again, if you're following protocols and you're discussing with a professional, you should be in great hands. Yep. Cool. What's your next one?
Next one, let's jump over to some vitamins, right? Vitamin D, or let's go in order, right? B, C, and D. I just think a lot of it's due to maybe some of the food quality, but even to just like life in general, right? The depletion of or the requirement of these particular, vitamins is also, helpful. Again, those are kind of really, if you find those in food, you can kind of take them. B and C are water soluble, so they'll also be helpful. D, again, like you're saying, consulting a physician, being careful. But most people at a standard dose that you're buying over the counter, you'll be fine.
I think the food quality thing there is really important too, especially for our population, considering most of these guys are in season while this is being filmed right now. And then we'll head into the summer season. You're going to be on the road a lot. Right. So food quality is a real issue. It's not insane. Just maybe I won't get good enough food. If you're eating fast food or you're even eating food from a restaurant, you have to understand that food is not going to be as high quality as what you are probably going to make at home.
Right. Totally. And then that being said, the ones that we wanted to focus on were zinc and magnesium, right? So again, all these, when someone says like, hey, what does vitamin or zinc do? Let's just say, right? It's like, well, it does a lot of things, right? So we are just kind of really scraping the surface and just kind of giving like overviews of it. But magnesium, really helpful for, it is an electrolyte, right? So it's helpful for obviously muscular function, but also, recovery, right? It'll actually, you will get an improved sleep pattern from that if, taken, accordingly and, obviously the right type, right? There are several types. You can take too much of that. Again, to your point, like you'll know when you took too much magnesium. Like if you're running to the toilet, like you took too much. It's pretty simple.
Right.
But again, just recovery and overall function, super helpful. Zinc, big ones for that. My takeaway is going to be one, immune function, which is helpful. Not only just because of certain times of the year, but when you're running, a lot of these guys are grinding, right? There's school, there's this, there's travel, there's everything. So all that is a potential stressor.
Yep.
You're grinding. So helping out the immune system, not a bad idea. For both male and female athletes, this does apply. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit more, or I shouldn't say a lot more geared towards the male guys or male athletes. Natural production of testosterone. Right. It's going to be, extremely helpful. One, maybe more so for the younger guys as far as like, reaching that sort of peak development. But again, it's a vitamin.
Well,
excuse
yeah,
me,
it
it's a
helps
mineral found in
regulate,
food.
right? Testosterone production.
Helps regulate and the production of it, right? Telling
Yeah.
it, hey, like, or, make more of it basically. Bioavailable, form. So I think that's big. And then the last one is L-tyrosine, which is another amino acid, which does help with, really mainly the big thing is it helps with the production of catecholamines, right? So your epinephrine and norepinephrine. Again, those sort of like fight or flight or those,
Yep.
adrenaline type hormones.
Which are essential in competition.
Exactly. Right. But where that one comes in particular, or has particular benefits is when someone's levels are depleted. Okay. Now, do we have the means of being able to figure that out? Probably not, but we can very accurately speculate on what's going on with that. Right. So again, the lifestyle that these guys are living, right? Stress is always a funny one because most people are going to say, oh, I'm not stressed out unless they are pulling their hair out or they're actually feeling stressed out.
Yeah, they're misappropriating the term stress too, right? I've said this before. We've tweeted it. I actually think the only thing a performance coach is, whether we're a performance coach of nutrition, a performance coach of physiology, or a performance coach of skill orientation, doesn't matter, right? We are really just stress managers, right? And we're trying to calculate how much stress is this system, right? Central nervous system, the hormone system, the neural system, whatever. How much stress has already been applied?
Right.
How much stress do we need to apply to create the result we want? And ultimately, at the end of the day, where you're headed with this is like, well, they're in competition or just in their life, the stress levels that they're experiencing are drastically high.
Totally. Right. And it's the way of the world, right? It's just that much more demanding.
Yep.
Simple way to put it, stress breeds adaptation. Mm-hmm. We want that most of the time, but there's some applications where we don't want that, right? Like you don't get bigger or stronger or build muscle without some form of stress that results in an adaptation. Right.
Correct.
But you go too far with that,
sure.
then you start seeing those negative adaptations, right? So again, grinding it out with school, or let's just talk about mainly from like the cognitive perspective, right?
Yep.
These things are depleted, and now it's like you're burnt out, right? It's hard to kind of keep going. It's hard to be resilient. It's hard to just find that like oomph to keep going. Most people think it's something internal, right? Like it's me. What's wrong with me? What am I doing? It's like, no, your body's responding normally. You're just not giving it what it needs, right? Every dose of stress requires an equal dose of recovery. Everybody's different though, right? I may do something and be extremely stressed out or perceivingly stressed out, but my body can tolerate it without doing anything.
Adapted to it.
My body can just handle it, right? It's like asking why some people are taller than I. It's like, I don't know. That's just how shit lined up for you, I guess. You know what I mean? But we live in a world now where it's like you can figure out if you need to, and you can compensate for these things, right? So that's where, again, the big benefit, I think, of kind of stacking those.
Let's run this down one more time. So we got creatine.
Yep.
We got vitamin D, C, and B.
Yep.
We have alpha GPC.
Yep.
We got zinc.
And magnesium.
Which
often you can find together, which is helpful, right? You can get
a
ZMA supplement that's both.
So, all right, magnesium, right? I think we have bicarbonate is the one you're referencing for like performance. And then 3 and 8 would be the more sleep-based one.
Yeah. The 3 and 8 is going to be helpful because it's a little more bioavailable and it's less stressful on the GI tract, right? Okay. Meaning like it's going to less likely cause
any
diarrhea,
GI issues.
right?
Yeah.
So
okay.
That is hard because usually those end up being a little bit more expensive. But
sure.
Again, if you're spending that, again, it depends on the individual.
Right, you're an elite athlete. Get used to it.
Exactly.
Okay. Zinc, and then we're finishing off with tyrosine.
The tyrosine. Yep.
Cool. So that's our stack. And what brands do you suggest getting this stack from?
So we do like Clean Athlete. We do like Thorne. Unfortunately, some of these things you can buy together. Sometimes they're in other products, so that does somewhat complicate it. But outside of that, I mean, if they don't have those particular kind of compounds there, I mean, really, it's a matter of, let's get everything on Amazon, right? I mean, you can find these things out there. We, though, like companies that we know are, number one, putting in their products what they say they're putting in their products, and that aren't going to...
How do you know that?
Well, it's really, again, you have to go on the fact that they're, NSF certified, or, they've undergone, third party kind of like audits, I guess, if you will, where
Right,
the
private
products are
testing
clean.
that wasn't funded by the
Exactly.
company.
Right. Big thing though is going to be that NSF stamp, because that's really kind of covers like all sort of like health and wellness. And it is a big factor that a lot of higher organizations like NCAA, they're going to look at, and they're going to want to know, is it there?
Right.
or
I'm
not?
pretty sure Thorne and Clean are
Thorne
both
and Clean are
approved
both,
by
yeah.
NCAA and USADA, right? The Olympic Committee.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So obviously these things have been thoroughly tested that we're referencing right now.
Right.
Very cool. Any other supplement that, like, if you were going to take outside of the stack, you would want to put in there? I don't know, say sodium.
That's a good one. Sodium, absolutely. Again, we talked about it earlier, but just the benefits cover so many different areas, right? And again, I think it's been reduced, or people take less of it because it's gotten a bad name, but they don't realize that those issues aren't actually applying to them.
Mm-hmm.
If I could pick out of all of those, and we got to remove creatine from that one because it is just has become one of our favorites. But if you took out all the other ones and just added sodium, I would bet anything that you would see that an individual would see dramatic improvements. I think it is the most underutilized product, supplement, whatever you want to call it, nutrient, whatever, out there in the world. I very rarely guarantee anything, but I can guarantee that appropriately dosed, right, in right amounts, right? It doesn't mean we're going to start like eating salt packets, right? But appropriately dosed, insane improvements in performance, and also just overall well-being, recovery, everything.
Awesome. Well, I love it. I think it goes without saying, none of this matters if we're not hydrated well.
Absolutely.
So
key to life, right?
Yeah. You have a quick way to
assess hydration?
Sure.
Which it is. I'm glad that you asked that, because everybody wants a number, right? They want the ounces.
Yeah.
I don't bother, because that to me,
Okay.
first of all, it's just too many works. We're doing enough numbers and equations in life in general.
Yeah.
It's actually really simple, and it's actually, it's funny when I say it. When you pee, right? Easier for guys, right? But when you pee, you should look at the color of your urine. If it's dark yellow or almost brown, you're dehydrated. If it's a lighter yellow, like a kind of like a lemonade, you're good. And if you're thirsty, that is a big factor. Most people say it's not only, the only trigger. It's not, I agree. But if you're, you could tell by going to the bathroom what it looks like. The darker, more yellowish brown, the less hydrated you are, the more you need to drink. Awesome. But drink water throughout the day is also an easy way to do it. Don't wait till you're like, oh shit, I think I'm dehydrated.
Right.
Let me start drinking. I have a game in an hour. It's like, boat's gone, dude. Sorry. You're out. It's not going to happen. If anything, you're going to have to keep calling a timeout, because you're going to have to pee every 5 minutes, because it's just going to go right through you.
Flush it in.
Right. So start early, start often.
Awesome. Thank you so
Cool.
much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.